Hello.
Hello, everybody. So we are live from the courthouse in my car because it's freezing cold outside. We wanted to give you guys kind of an update on what happened today. You all will be very disappointed to learn that nothing happened.
Yeah. But I mean, I was kind of going into it expecting like not much, but
yeah. So like the way that started out was pretty it really set the tone for the rest of the proceedings. The judge held up this massive pile of paper and was like, I can see how many hours you guys have spent just in billing your client to formulate this ex parte case. And he was legitimately like kind of almost angry about the amount of time that is spent on this ex parte. And so, yeah, that really set the tone for the rest of the thing because, the judge, was not really understanding. He didn't even read some of the stuff. And he was not understanding to the situation, to say the least. He said that there are credibility issues on LuLaRoe's behalf, like against LuLaRoe. And so much so that he cannot determine the ex parte motion. He said that there's possible impeachment issues, with everything. And he just could not rule on the file declarations. And it was just a whole lot of, the judge was scolding them for acting like what he saw as, I'm taking my ball and going to court, basically. Like, he really talked down to Reed's lawyers. Mm-hmm. It was completely unfair. It was unfounded. What else?
Let's see. So they denied the ex parte without prejudice.
Yeah, so without prejudice, the judge said he wanted the lawyers to make reasonable considerations on each side if the attorneys are going to be reasonable. Which I was raising my hand at that point. I was like, hey, call on me. Someone call on me. And so I had the bailiff come over and I was like, hey, bailiff, can I say something right now? And he looked at me and he was like, no. And I was like, for real? He goes, yeah. Okay. So I just had to sit there because I was going to point out to the judge that all of the girls who's been owed money, and we've contacted the AG, and then we got from Bob and Bill, whatever, those formulated emails that had the exact same information, copy paste, that just said, oh, well, we're going to have, you're going to get your refund in the order of the items received. And I was going to be like, look, this is apparent that LuLaRoe has no intention of being reasonable. I mean, imagine all the people still waiting for refunds. That's not reasonable. There's nothing reasonable about any of this. And I see a guy right now starting up a jackhammer. Of course he's going to jackhammer right here where I'm parked. And so, I was unable to discuss anything. Reed, before we walked in, they were, of course you're jackhammering.
Oh well.
Bummers.
Hopefully Anyways. It's not too loud for you guys. Can you guys hear us okay with the jackhammer?
Yeah. So when the judge started saying all that about the ex parte motion, Reed obviously got up and said, look, we're just seeking provisional relief sought as temporary status. They didn't want this to make this like we're freezing all accounts for life. You're never going to see your money again. They just wanted this to happen until we go to trial. They didn't want all of this to happen, for a long-term situation. Then they said that we're really just asking for a temporary fiduciary, which was just someone who could go in there and just track where the money is going and report back to the courts where the money is going. And the judge countered back and said, well, haven't you guys contacted a liquidator? To which Reed said, well, yeah, I mean, we have giant warehouses of storage for this stuff. I mean, we have to get rid of it somehow. Like, we can't just keep storing it for forever. Then the judge brought up section 4.2.1, which is where the 120 days thing. So remember when we brought in that there was an email sent from Reed to this other lawyer from the top whatever firm in the world, whatever, and that was over the 120 days. The judge was questioning that, when did that 120 days start? And they were like, well, according to our contract, the 120 days started upon, the PO and bringing the product. So, Reed said that about the warehouses, about, they're paying storage fees for all of this, because there's just nonstop stuff, that there's just massive amounts of product that's being held under storage that my dyer is paying for to store. And then Patrick got brought up, which was awesome.
Oh, Marsha, she really fought a good fight. She was like amazing. Yeah. I hate using that word, but I don't.
No, she was really good. She said, I think the judge ended up bringing up part of the of Mark's thing where Mark's thing where he said something about there was he terminated Mark. This is just a disgruntled employee. And what was kind of weird about that was that Marsha then was like, wait a minute, he's really not a disgruntled employee. According to the website, the web article that we posted and gave to you, Judge, it said that, he left on his own terms, and now suddenly he's fired, and suddenly he's, just some disgruntled employee, when he was a part of their inner circle. He was the one on all these planes. He was the one doing all of this. They even named a garment after him, which we were like, yeah!
Yeah.
That was awesome. Like either he's part of the inner circle or he wasn't. You can't say after the fact, oh, he was a nobody to us. So Marsha really banged that out. And apparently Patrick had been with them for 5 years. That's what Marsha said. And then the other part that Marsha went on about, this really hit, I thought this really scored them a home run, was that his face was on a garment. Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing that really hit home was the fact that Marsha stood up and said, if you have this, $50 million lawsuit ahead of you, why don't you welcome the transparency of a fiduciary, a temporary fiduciary? If you have all of this money. And then she also said that there was, 50 million to other, about approximately 50 million owed to other debtors. Somewhere just like between UPS and whatever. So there's lots of stuff going on, that she was just saying, they should really welcome the transparency. And then the judge turned to Bob and Bill, LuLaRoe's lawyers, and was like, so do you guys have anything to add? And they're like, no, we're fine waiting until there's a hearing. We're fine. There's nothing else for us to say.
My jaw kind of dropped at that point. Like, they had nothing to say after, like, Marsha, went through all of this and was proving her case. And they were just like, no, we're okay. We don't need to say anything.
So, in my expert opinion, my whole expert, I watched Law and Order for 20 years opinion, is that the judge was basically kind of passing the buck off to someone else.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I don't feel like the judge gave Reed a fair shot. I know they didn't give Reed a fair shot. There was no part of this that was fair. Hey, Kimmy. There was no part of this that was fair. Andy's here too, you guys.
Hi, guys.
This is my little setup that we've got going on right now. We're in the car. It's freezing outside, and neither one of us are really wearing a jacket. Plus, we don't want people to hear us. So, I know, right? Law and Order is awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, the whole thing just wasn't fair. It wasn't right. Nothing's happening. The judge refused to rule. He denied without prejudice. I don't know, Kristen. I don't know what's going on here, because I think Reed is just as dumbfounded. I think they were just as surprised as we were. Mm-hmm. Towards the end, so I mentioned before that the judge wanted them to resolve this if they were being reasonable, and I wanted to say, no, they're not reasonable. Yeah. You'll never guess what happened. So at the very end, the judge said, all right, you guys, Reed's lawyer said, hey, can we, go outside and see if we can negotiate something real quick? And the lawyer said, yeah, that's fine, go ahead. But the lawyers knew that nothing was going to come of it, and the judge knew nothing was going to come of it. So they went outside, and I didn't hear this, but Andy did. What did they say?
LuLaRoe's lawyers, because they were asking about scheduling a date for the hearing. Mm-hmm. Reed was asking about scheduling a date for the hearing, and the judge was kind of considering it, I guess. But then LuLaRoe's lawyers were like, well, we can just schedule that online. Yeah. So they went outside, and at the time we were kind of under the impression that they might be coming back, but I guess the judge was like, no, like, don't even worry about it. So we waited in the courtroom for a good, probably like 10-15 minutes. Yeah. And then finally we're like, they are not coming back. So we left, and that was it. They were gone. Yeah. Yeah. Lula Law is gone. They had no intention of discussing anything with Reed. It was all in bad faith at that point. No intention of anything. It was such a bummer. So nothing happened today. So sorry to disappoint everybody. Sorry. It does kind of stink. It really does stink a lot, actually. But that's all that happened, was a whole lot of nothing. Mm-hmm. The judge just wasn't having it. He seemed like he really just didn't care. Yeah, the judge didn't care. The whole hearing lasted, I think, for them, maybe 20 minutes or so. There was nothing that stood out as being, other than just, I know that this will probably get posted to defective, but the judge really just kind of came off as being cowardly. Like, really just, this was a lot for an ex parte, as I'm learning that how all of this works, because I'm Googling and stuff, but the judge did have enough to rule on just a temporary fiduciary that would just report back to the courts, not to Reed, but to the courts, on where the money is being spent, where the money is going. And the judge said no to that he just would deny it without prejudice and wait for a formal hearing to convene whenever that happens. So, yeah, nothing stuck for a long time, and that's why this is the way that this is. So, that's all we have to report from the courthouse. We're coming to you live from the courthouse, but that's it. That's all we have to say. There's a couple things that we're going to take offline that, there's not a whole lot we can do, us being us. Yeah. I have ideas on things that might help. I don't know if they will help, but they might help. I don't have any authority, obviously. But I have a couple of ideas to help with everything. So look out for a couple posts from me. And from, obviously, I'm going to get together with the admins of Defective, because I do have a couple of ideas. So, if you guys want to
I guess this video, please post this in Defective for everyone. And then I'm going to drive home and get things together. My sister-in-law really needs to go to bed. She works swing shift, so she's watching my kids right now. So she's like exhausted. Anyways, so we're going to go, and we love you guys. And you'll hear more from me later on today, and probably from Andy as we put our notes together and figure out what we want to do. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.